Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, ay. Ay, 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 ay.
Erev Tov, welcome to Congregation Beth Shalom. My name is Rabbi Dan Ain, and along with Rabbi Amanda Russell, we'll be leading you in this evening's Kol Nidre service. One of the reasons that we wanted to have this service with all of you was because we know how hard it has been to connect during this past year. And we want you to know that you have always been with us in our thoughts. And along with Rabbi Russell and our staff here, we have tried to figure out how do we care for this community that feels so spread out. And so this evening, we are coming to you from our sanctuary, and we have Sandy Edwards, who is going to join us, past president, counselor of our board, as well as Michael Rappaport, our president of our board, and together we're going to hold up the Torahs and hold up this community as we enter into Yom Kippur together. So if you have your machzor with you, I invite you at this moment to turn to page 204. If you go to page 204, I'm going to read at the top here, "Who can understand the source of our errors? Cleanse me of secret faults and restrain your servant from willful sins. May they not control me. Then shall I be innocent of wrongdoing, wholly clear of transgression. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer." And at this point now, I'm going to invite up Sandy and Michael to open up our ark and to take out our Torahs for the Kol Nidre.
Beshiva shel mala, ubishiva shel mata, al dat hamakom ve'al dat hakahal, anu matirin lehitpalel im ha'avaryanim. Beshiva shel mala, ubishiva shel mata, al dat hamakom ve'al dat hakahal, anu matirin lehitpalel im ha'avaryanim. Beshiva shel mala, ubishiva shel mata, al dat hamakom ve'al dat hakahal, anu matirin להתפלל עם העבריינים.
By the authority of the court on high and by the authority of this court below, with divine consent and with the consent of this congregation, we grant permission to pray with those who have transgressed. Page 205.
Kol Nidre Vesarei Vecharamei Vekonamei Vechinuyei Vekinusei Ushevuot Dindarna Udishtabana Udeacharimna Vida'asarna Al Nafshatana Miyom Kippurim Zeh Ad Yom Kippurim Haba Aleinu Litova Kulechon Icharad Navehon Kulechon Yehon Shiran Shivitin Beteilin Umevutalin Lasharirin Velakayamim Nidra la nidre Vesarana la esarei Ushevu atana la Shevuot. Kol Nidre Vesarei Vecharamei Vekonamei Vechinuyei Vekinusei Ushevuot Dindarna Udishtabana Udeacharimna Vida'asarna Al Nafshatana Miyom Kippurim Zeh Ad Yom Kippurim Haba Aleinu Litova Kulechon Icharad Navehon שביתין בתהילין ומבוטלין לשרירין ולקיימין נדרה לה נדרי ואסרה נא לאסרי ושבועתנה לשבועות. Kol Nidre Vesarei Vecharamei Vekonamei Vechinuyei Vekinusei Shavuot Din Darna Udishtabana Udeacharimna Vidasarna al nafshatana miyom kippurim zeh ad yom kippurim Aleinu letova kulechon icharat navechon kulechon yechon shiran shivikin shivitin beteilim umevutalin lasharirin velakayamin nidrana la nidre ve'esarana la esarei Ushuvuatana la Shavuot V'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael v'lager hagar b'tocham ki lechoam bishkagam v'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael v'lager hagar b'tocham ki lechoam bishkaga v'nislach lechol adat b'nei Yisrael v'lager hagar b'tocham ki lechoam bishkaga סלח נא לעוון העם הזה גודל חסדך, וכאשר נשאת לעם הזה מצרים ויעד הנה, ושם נאמר. ויאמר אדוני, סלחתי כדבריך. ויאמר אדוני, סלחתי כדבריך. ויאמר אדוני, סלחתי כדבריך. ברוך אתה, אדוני אלוהינו, מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
The entire congregation of the people Israel shall be forgiven, as well as the stranger who dwells among them, for all have erred. Moses prays, as befits your abundant love, please forgive this people's sin, just as you have always forgiven this people from the time of the Exodus from Egypt until now. And there it further says, Adonai replied, I have forgiven, as you have asked. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, ruler of time and space. We thank you for granting us life, for sustaining us, and for bringing us to this very moment, this Kol Nidre evening. Koach, thank you to Michael and to Sandy for so much. I don't think I could possibly share. I don't think we would have enough time allotted for this YouTube slot to describe all of the ways that you have supported this community, in particular during this summer and in the past few months. So we are indebted to you for holding up this community during a time of need. So we started the new year with one 19th century rabbi. And so now I'd like to begin our Yom Kippur with the story of another. Menachem Mendel Morgenstern was born in the 18th century in 1788 in Poland in the small village of Gray. And he did not come from exceptional lineage. His father was a window repairman who used to cruise around the neighboring villages with a load of window glass on his shoulders, and he would repair damaged windows. It's like a scene right out of Chaplin's The Kid. Menachem Mendel was brilliant from the beginning, and he was described as a self-assured, serious-minded, lonely boy with apparent mystical tendencies. I guess kind of like Harry Potter, as my kids might say. When he was 5 years old, he asked his father, "Where is God?" "God is everywhere," his father replied. No, said little Menachem. "I think God is only where you let him in." Menachem came away from his first encounter with a real Hasidic leader, the seer of Lublin, very dissatisfied. So dissatisfied that the seer asked him, "Tell me, Menachem Mendel, why did you come here? Why did you come to Lublin? Did you only come to buy a pocket knife?" he's reported as saying. To which Menachem replied, "I surely didn't come to see the divine spirit, and I refuse to be captivated by it." He eventually did find a mentor in Rabbi Simcha Bunim. And there's a story that once when they were invited to a new town, the people made a reception for Rabbi Bunim and his students. And the rabbi invited members of his crew to come up and to drink from the wine, but overlooked Menachem Mendel. After they left, Menachem approached Rabbanim and said, "Of all your students, I am the most outstanding, Rabbi. However, when it comes to honors, you forget all about me." But Rabbanim would come to depend on Menachem Mendel when he got older and lost his eyesight. And Menachem would read to him from the Zohar every evening in his bedroom. After Rabbanim died in 1827, Menachem Mendel moved to the community of Kutsk, where he would become their Rebbe. Welcome. However you are joining us today, I've written this sermon for both online and in person, so however you're joining us today, welcome. We're happy that you're here with us. Dayenu. It should be enough that we could have this moment together. It was just 10 days ago that so many of us gathered on 14th Avenue to welcome in the new year, and we'll be back there tomorrow morning as the 10 days of Teshuvah come to an end. In the last 10 days, personally, I have celebrated the birthdays of my wife and my son, and we have commemorated 20 years since 9/11 and the death of a camp friend. And 2 nights ago, I attended a session with over 200 people trying to help find a kidney for my father. And this morning, I got a call from Mountain View that someone had located my wallet. And Alana and I spent most of the afternoon canceling charges from Victoria's Secret, I'm sorry to say. So it has been a time for me, for my family, for all of us. I imagine that at some point on Sunday, when I led a program at the JCC in Palo Alto, the wallet slipped away, along with my other personal information and paperwork. The JCC program was titled, "Can Yom Kippur Be God Optional?" And it was 20 or so of us sitting outside in a circle talking about those enduring previous negative experiences that people have had around clergy or fundamentalist settings, and how the concept of God has become inextricably intertwined with those negative experiences. And they wanted to know if Yom Kippur could be God optional. I said, when isn't God optional? Now, the Kutzker Rebbe, more so than anything else, was interested in the pursuit of truth, more so than unity, more so than peace of mind, or even peace. One of his most famous sayings was, "A God whom I can understand, I would not have chosen." Once a chassid, a student, came to him complaining, "Rabbi, I am forced to think and think constantly, and I just can't find peace of mind." "About what are you thinking so much?" he asked. The chassid said, "I'm wondering if there is a supreme judge who deals with the world justly." The Kutzker Rebbe said back to him, "What does it matter to you?" "Rabbi, if there's no judge and no justice," he said, then what sense does the entire Torah make?" "And why does it matter to you?" asked the Rabbi. "How can you say that, Rabbi? Surely it matters to me," the student said. "If you're so concerned," the Kutzker Rebbe replied, "then you must be a good Jew." "A good Jew is allowed to think," he said. "It will do you no harm." So in Palo Alto, after I answered and asked that first question, I tried something that I have never done before. Maybe I was inspired by Rabbi Lou, having spent the month of Elul with his teachings and with all of you. If you've missed those sessions, if you're going to be at home, maybe you're missing Rabbi Lou's voice that we have tried to bring alive during this year, you can go to our YouTube channel. You can watch those sessions. I invite you to do that. So I led a guided meditation in which I asked the participants to go back to that moment, to do a teshuvah, a return to when they had encountered those negative feelings and associations, to see if they could go back into those moments in which they had rabbis talk down to them, shul doors shut on them, in which the rabbi in front of them had failed to recognize the divine image on their face. And for all of those rabbis, On this Yom Kippur, I want to apologize. I am sorry. I'm guilty too. We rabbis have done wrong. We have sinned. We have transgressed. I want you all to hear that. I want it recorded. Because if we get stuck there, stuck in the past as a community and what was done to us, well, we'll put up our defenses too high. Our Yetzer Hara will become overactive and will become our own stumbling blocks this Yom Kippur. Now, my daughter came home the other day and she told me that she wanted to run for her school's presidency at 10 years old. This was something that neither my wife nor I would ever have attempted in the 5th grade. So instinctively, the first thing I said to her, of course, was, "Who else is running? Anybody you know?" She said yes, a few of her friends also wanted to be president. And what should she do, she asked me. I really didn't know what to say. And I think by now you probably know that my ability to be politically astute is, how shall I put it, maybe not as refined as some of my theological impulses. So I said, "Look, honey, looking back on my life, I only regret those things that I didn't do, those chances I didn't take. Like not trying out for the high school baseball team in 10th grade because I got cut in the 9th. Like not running downtown to help out on the Tuesday morning in September 20 years ago because I was afraid to leave my couch. Andrew Zucker, our family friend from Camp Ramah, was working on the 50th floor that day. He had a pregnant wife at home, and he was a volunteer firefighter. And so when everyone ran down the stairwell, he went up. Lana, she reminded me recently of a Kabbalat Shabbat service. Seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. In the chapel downstairs, it was one of those listen programs, and we welcomed Rob Reich, who was that amazing ethereal circus organist. And she recalled how closing her eyes next to me in this setting where the kids ran around, she imagined that we were in some other expansive other world, lit by fireflies and tea lights. And even before this god-awful pandemic, when the song ended, how she went up to Rob and told him that his music made her feel less afraid of dying. Rabbi Milton Steinberg, the great 20th century rabbi and author of the book As a Driven Leaf, before his untimely death in 1950 at the age of 46, noted that the distinction between a religious person and a non-religious person is often misunderstood. All religious folks are doubters at times, and every doubter at some point is a believer. Now, this is no small point because you might think to participate in any of this, wherever you are, that you need to be absolutely certain. But even a believer will come down off of their transcendent heights and question what happened. That's what it means to lead a religious life, and in particular, a life as a Jew, never knowing for sure. The Torah tells us that our ancestors sang out in joy on the other side of the Red Sea, singing, "The Lord is my strength and my might." But then the next chapter, they said, "Oh, if only we'd have died in Egypt where we had it so good and ate our fill of meat and bread." So our tradition is full of doubt. We've got Job, the patient Job, who says, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away." But eventually Job can't take it any longer either, and he screams out to God for an answer. To Jonah, who we'll read about tomorrow, who flees from God's presence only to find himself in the belly of a fish, and then to have this moment of insight there, to come out, to fulfill his mission, and then to feel terrible about it, upset and angry at the end of that book. Rabbi Simcha Bunim, the Kutzkis Rebbe, said that at times we should keep 2 pieces of paper, you hear me say it all the time, in each pocket, one that says, "The world was created for me," and the other that says, "I am nothing but dust and ashes." Just this past Shabbat, it was my son's 7th birthday, and he woke up super early, and the kids went downstairs upstairs for breakfast. And I could hear them singing happy birthday and how excited Samson was. He kept saying, "We're having strawberry shortcake for breakfast." Honestly, I don't think I've ever heard a pure expression of joy. But I could not get out of bed because I was still too sad. I was thinking about Andrew and about how my grandmother of blessed memory used to wait through all of the names read at the 9/11 memorial each year until they arrived at Andrew Zucker's. Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi, one of the founders of Renewal Judaism, said that when people come to shul or to church, they don't want to come vulnerable. They want to come very protected. They say, "This is how I am. You're not going to touch me." But he said, if the world is throwing us off balance, if it's scrambling our intentions, our hopes, then we need to be recalibrated. And if we're not going to make ourselves vulnerable, he said, then Judaism isn't going to help. Nothing is. We recalibrate who we are and what our purpose is in the encounter with God, Reb Zalman taught, in that wrestling, in that place where we feel most alone, in that space where people don't understand you, don't get who or what you are, that lonely place inside where you don't let anyone in for fear of them trampling on what you hold most personal. Are you letting God in there? If we don't want to do that, if that makes us too anxious, if it brings up too much stuff about who we've been, how we've acted this past year, Reb Zalman reminds us that if we don't do the inner work in the presence of God, then what happens in a lot of what we call spirituality, he said, is putting whipped cream on garbage. You know, there's this famous legend about the Kutzker Rebbe traveling out of town with Reb Hirsch, and they come to a bridge where several people begin throwing stones at them. Have no fear, said the Kutzker. These aren't real people. He said, these aren't even real stones. They're mere phantoms. Reb Hirsch was silent for a moment, and he said, well, might we be phantoms too? No, said the Kutzker, as long as we have at some point felt a genuine urge to repent. Maybe you feel like you're becoming a phantom. I do. I often walk around with a kippah or a hat on, and then glasses, and when it's dark out, when it's light out, I'll wear shaded sunglasses, then I'll have a mask, and sometimes I'll wear two masks to cover my beard, and if I'm particularly feeling indulgent, I'll wear my earbuds. A number of you have tried to give me alternative masks that are much nicer, but no matter whatever I pull on, I still feel hidden, like a phantom or a non-player character in a video game. Maybe you're familiar with the new movie Free Guy, where Ryan Reynolds plays the title character of a movie, and he's one of these non-player characters in a video game. And the movie revolves around him waking up to his reality and fighting for existence. Jacob, our forefather, before he had his name changed to Israel, before he wrestled with the angel, was a phantom. He followed the advice of his mother and he stole his brother's blessing, but then he snuck away in the middle of the night to avoid the confrontation. He lived with his uncle Laban, marrying both of his daughters, but then snuck out in the middle of the night to avoid a confrontation. And then when he hears that his brother is approaching, still afraid, he crosses the river Yabok and hides safely behind a number of people and gifts. And it is there that he finally falls asleep and wrestles with a man, an angel of God, until dawn. Aviva Zornberg writes that in order for Jacob to become a person of power and authority, something else was needed from him. She says it's a capacity to confront, a passionate will that will expose one to loss and injury. Zornberg highlights one midrashic tradition that suggests the name of the angel was Israel. Angels, she writes, are named for their mission. And so this one was called Israel because that was the purpose of his mission, to show Jacob in a therapeutic encounter how to become Israel. Zornberg writes that in this struggle, Jacob has summoned the angel to save him from the condition of being Jacob, from the condition of being a phantom, a non-player character in the story of life, into being the father of the children of Israel. Rabbi Steinberg taught that this pain, this sadness, it's actually desirable. He says that a person who has never had doubt is potentially the best atheist. But what happens is sometimes we might linger in that doubt or that pain, and the danger is the malady can become chronic. And the great peril is that we live our doubts and not our faiths. That's why we have minyan here. That's why we pray every day. Why we come together and read the Torah every Shabbat. We have to keep reminding ourselves that this, what we're doing here, even with the cameras, this is the healthy way to be. Not whatever's going on out there. And even when we come here every day, we can still fall into despair and upset, and it's true. We're going to disagree from time to time. Today, there feels like there's anger and mistrust on top of so much sadness. I feel it. You feel it too? Sometimes I feel in my chest, people are angry. What are we angry at? Can we look at that? We talked a great deal on Rosh Hashanah about Abraham and Isaac, about the Yetzer Hara, the Yetzer HaTov, the open tense and the closed tense. We talked about the divisions in our world, in our city, in our shul. And today on Yom Kippur, we struggle with the divisions in our own heart, the wrestling that exists inside of each of us. We are called to, on this day, come clean, not with others, but hopefully we've done that by now, but we're called to come clean with our Creator. Is that who we're angry at? Are we angry at God for this awful year? Is that who we're punishing? Or is it other people, phantoms in our world, or even the enemies of those that we hold most sacred? The Kutzker taught that in the same way that we tolerate people whose appearance is different from your own, 19th century rabbi, in the same way that you tolerate people whose appearance is different from your own, the Kutzker taught, so must you tolerate the opinions of others, even if they are not in agreement with your own views and convictions. Or maybe the wrestling is still to be had with ourselves, with our shadow sides. When we feel bad, as Reb Zalman teaches us, when we feel that in our gut, when we feel nauseous for what we've done, for how we've behaved, for how we've acted, for who we've been, for who we are becoming, that is the beginning of teshuvah. That is why we fast and refrain from worldly pleasures on this day, so that we can feel the hunger pains tomorrow night, that we can be in touch with them, in touch with our struggle with God and the people that we are meant to become. That's the opportunity that is presented before us in these next 24 hours. Today, on this day. And just like every other day, it is, of course, completely optional. And let us say, Amen. At this point now, I am a great privilege to call upon the president of our congregation, Michael Rappaport.
Thank you, Rabbi Ain. Gamar Chatima Tova to all of you, and thank you for being here tonight for our Kol Nidre Yom Kippur service. Thank you to Rabbi Ain and Rabbi Russell for everything, just everything. And thank you to Sandy for holding the Torah tonight. Trust me, it's not as easy as it looks. And for everything you do and to help me. So I think we all know what my speech really is about tonight. It is, in fact, called the Kol Nidre Appeal. And trust me, we'll get to the appeal part in a bit. But as I was preparing my remarks, I found myself thinking about how I came to this moment, speaking to you on Yom Kippur for the first time as president of Congregation Beth Shalom. I never anticipated this, because the truth is, Beth Shalom is the first synagogue that I have ever belonged to. And the rabbis at Beth Shalom are the first rabbis that I truly can say are my rabbis. I know this may sound surprising to you for a kid who grew up in New York City and went to the Solomon Schechter School of Queens for 8 years. I learned Hebrew there, I learned how to pray there, I learned how to read Torah there. But my family never belonged to a synagogue. My mother, Bella Rappaport, she grew up in Newark, New Jersey, and later the Bronx during the Depression. Her parents never had any money to send her to religious school or to belong to a shul. And even though she is the quintessential Jewish mother, trust me, she was never found it important to be part of a Jewish community. My father, Julius Rappaport of blessed memory, had a very different experience. He grew up an Orthodox Hungarian Jew in Czechoslovakia. He survived the Holocaust, along with just 2 of his 6 siblings. And while his sisters remained Orthodox and observant, my father did not. I think he had a very difficult relationship with God after his experience during the war. He valued a Jewish education and valued Jewish traditions, but he was not a regular shul goer. Every year at the high holidays, we would go to whatever shul he could find some neighbor to sponsor us for guest tickets. Some years it was the Hillcrest Jewish Center, which was 2 blocks from our house. Some years it was the Young Israel of Jamaica Estates, which was 8 blocks from our house. But despite their proximity, neither of those places was home to us. Unfortunately, my father passed away in 1999. And as we were preparing for his funeral, we realized we had no rabbi to call, nobody to officiate at the service, nobody to call for a Shiva minyan. My Aunt Charlotte came through for us by asking her Orthodox rabbi from the Upper West Side to officiate. I didn't know that rabbi's name then, and I certainly don't remember it now. But what I do remember is what he said at my father's funeral. He said, "I didn't know Julius Rappaport. In fact, I never met him." He then went on to talk about how wonderful my aunt was, and she was, but the day wasn't about her. It was about my father. But there was no rabbi who knew my father. By contrast, 5 years later, I had now met my now wife, Ruth, and she and I began planning our wedding. Ruth wanted to get married on Long Beach Island on the Jersey Shore, where her family had vacationed for 25 years. I said to Ruth, "That sounds fantastic, but where are we going to find a rabbi to marry us?" Without hesitation, she said, "Rabbi Frischman, my rabbi, will marry us." You see, Ruth's family had belonged to Congregation Beth El in Spring Valley, New York, since before she was born. Ruth and her 3 brothers came up through the Hebrew school program. They would chant Torah every Yom Kippur, like my son is going to do tomorrow. Her brother Bruce would blow the shofar every Rosh Hashanah while her dad called out the notes. The Katz kids all participated in decades of Purim spiels. They had an extremely close relationship with Rabbi Louis Frischman and Cantor George Weinflash, both of blessed memory. So sure enough, when Ruth asked Rabbi Frischman to officiate at our wedding, he didn't hesitate for a second. Not only did he and his wife drive the 100 or so miles to Long Beach Island for the wedding, but they spent the entire weekend with us and attended every wedding event. Now keep in mind that Rabbi Frischman was 80 years old at this point. But he was Ruth's rabbi. He had officiated her baby naming, her bat mitzvah, and her confirmation. And he was certainly going to officiate at her wedding. So Ruth grew up knowing the power of belonging, and I didn't grow up knowing that, but I came to find it for myself and my family here at Congregation Beth Shalom. For us, belonging to Beth Shalom means we have friends and a community that we cherish and rely on. It means teaching our children about the diversity of our community, sharing space with congregants from different generations, different backgrounds, different opinions, and different levels of observance. It means we have a place where we can learn together and expand our thinking, and it means having rabbis that we love and trust and who are an integral part of our lives. I never had that growing up, but my kids now, I do as well. So Rabbi Ain, someday you're going to have to drive to Modesto for Julian's wedding, and Rabbi Russell, you're going to have to go to Ukiah, I think, for Manu's wedding. So enjoy both of those spots. So I hope my story of how my family came to belong here inspires you to think about what belonging to Beth Shalom means to you, because for each of us, it means different things. Each of us is looking for different experiences and ways of connecting. And I can assure you that our rabbis, our staff, our board, we all understand the breadth of what it means to belong. And we take very seriously the job of meeting the diverse needs of our community. We work very hard to serve all of our members individually and our congregation as a whole. But I'll say this as plainly as I can. It takes time, money, and resources to do it. Which brings me back to why I'm up here. As I said, I hope my story of belonging to CBS inspires you to think about your own sense of belonging, how you want to step up and support the Beth Shalom community and keep it thriving for the coming year and beyond. I suspect that many synagogue presidents, frankly, all around the world tonight, are going to say the same next sentence. COVID has not been kind to the financials of our congregation. We're now entering the third fiscal year where COVID has had some impact, the end of our 2020, throughout 2021, and now into 2022. And thus far, we've made it through pretty well. As you know, we have not had to lay off any staff, and we have not had to take any draconian measures. But while our membership has also grown through our efforts to reach our youngest community, we've still seen migration of families out of the city that has impacted our membership. Our preschool continues to thrive under the leadership of Catherine Barboni and Dale Kleisley, but keeping our children safe through this pandemic requires us to maintain strict health protocols and smaller class sizes that has impacted both our revenues and expense. Our religious school, led by our lifelong learning Moreh Derech, Adam Lowy, is charting an exciting new path for religious school education. But attendance is down as parents struggle to determine how much Zooming their kids can do and or how much risk they want to take to bring kids to in-person lessons. While many of us still view this building as new, it's actually at an age where maintenance needs and projects can pile up. Thankfully, we have Alan Levy on staff and Mark Gunther on our board who are shepherding those projects along as long as we have the funding for them. And lastly, the constant pivoting we need to do to and from online and indoor and outdoor and for classes and services and minions and shivas and other gatherings, it requires time and resource. We need to invest more in our administrative help to augment the incredible work and dedication of Rabbi Ain, Rabbi Russell, and our executive director, Vered Cohen. So all of this means we need your monetary support. As you know, member dues cover only a portion of our operating expenses. Every year, this Kol Nidre appeal is our shul's principal effort to bridge the gap in our operating budget, to allow Beth Shalom to extend membership benefits to all who wish to daven with us, regardless of their economic circumstances, and to enable our rabbis to inspire, comfort, teach, innovate, and build this community that has been such an integral part of our lives, as well as the San Francisco Jewish world, for the last century and now into the future. So to the extent you are able this year, I ask you to stretch even further than you have in the past. What Ruth and I are doing this year is we're actually punching the next highest box on our donation card, and we're punching an additional box just to help out a little bit more. If you are able, I ask that you do the same or more. If you didn't receive your pledge card in the mail or forget to bring it with you, there should be extra ones with your name on it that'll be filed with your name tag at registration if you come tomorrow. You can punch it and drop it off. You can send it in. If you don't want to use the pledge card, you can go to make our donations online after the holiday, or you can always call our office and we'll be happy to help you. Because no matter your reasons for belonging to Beth Shalom, we all belong here. We all have a place here. And we all know that the job of maintaining the strength and the vibrancy of our community and ensuring its future belongs to all of us. So on behalf of the entire board of directors, our rabbis, and our staff, I thank you for your support. May you all have an easy fast and Gemar Chamtima Tova.
Thank you, Michael. That was beautiful. Okay, so we're running a little bit late. So at this point, we are going to turn to page 207 for the Baruch. I invite you to please rise.
Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvarav ma'ariv ha'aravim b'chokma potech sharim ubitfuna meshane itim, umachalif et hazmanim umesader et kochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvelayla Adonai tzvaot shemo el chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv ha'aravim. Nahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chochim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta al כי הם חיינו ויארך ימינו והם נגע יומם ולילה ואהבתך תסר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. אל מלך נאמן. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, ברוך שם כבוד. Malchuto leolam va'ed.
We continue silently on the bottom of page 208 on to 209. At the close of this service and about 20 minutes from now, I invite you to turn to pages 213 through 221. The Ma'ariv service, the Ma'ariv Amidah, is completely silent and personal. So we're, at the close of this service, going to invite you to do that. At this point now, we turn to page 223 for the Ya'aleh.
Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh, tachanunenu, tachanunenu, me'erev ve'yavo, ve'yavo, shavatenu, shavatenu, miboker ve'yira'eh, ve'yira'eh, rinunenu, rinunenu, ad arev Ya'aleh, Ya'aleh, Kolenu, kolenu, me'erev, v'yavot tzidkatenu miboker, v'yira'eh pidyonenu ad arev.
As we enter into the slichot, into the asking God for forgiveness, we turn to page 226. We are reminded of the attributes of God. We want to focus on God's merciful side as Rabbi Russell chants at the bottom of page 226.
Vayavor Adonai al panav vayikra Adonai, Adonai, el rachum v'chanun, erech apayim, v'rav chesed v'emet, notzer chesed la'alafim, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא ונקה, וסלקת על עווננו וחטאתנו ונחלתנו. סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו, מחל לנו מלכנו כי פשענו, כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח, כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח, ורב חסד לכל קוראיך, ורב חסד לכל קוראיך.
The short confession is found on page 235.
Ay, 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 Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi, Hevinu, Vehirshanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu, Tafalnu Sheker, ay, 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 Yatsnu Ra, Kizavnu, Latsnu, Maradnu, Niatsnu, Sararnu, Avinu, Pashanu, Sararnu, Kishinu Oref, ay, 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 Rashanu, Shichatnu, Tiavnu, Ta'inu, Titanu, סהרנו ממצוותיך וממשפטיך הטובים, ולא שבה לנו, ואתה צדיק על כל הבא עלינו, כי אם אתה עשית, ואנחנו הרשענו.
We have turned from your goodly laws and commandments, but it has not profited us. Surely you are in the right with respect to all that comes upon us, for you have acted faithfully, but we have been in the wrong. The long confession is found on page 237.
על חטא שחטאנו לפניך באונס וברצון, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך באימוץ חלב, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בלבש דעת אבי, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בדעת, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביצר הרע, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך ביודעים ובלא יודעים, ועל כולם אלוהי סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו, ועל כולם אלוהי סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו.
We have sinned against you through denial and deceit, and we have sinned against you by taking bribes. We have sinned against you by clever cynicism, and we have sinned against you by speaking ill of others. We have sinned against you by the way we do business, and we have sinned against you in our eating and drinking. We have sinned against you by greed and oppressive interest, and we have sinned against you through arrogance. We have sinned against you in everyday conversation, and we have sinned against you through conspiratorial glances. We have sinned against you through condescension, and we have sinned against you through stubbornness.
Ve'al kulam Eloi selichot selach lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu ve'al kulam Eloi selichot selach lanu mechal lanu Selach lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu Achet shechatanu lefanecha bifrikat ol Ve'achet shechatanu lefanecha biflilut Achet shechatanu lefanecha Achet shechatanu lefanecha Al chet shechatanu lefanecha bitzumet yad Ve'al chet shechatanu lefanecha bitchon levav Ve'al kulam Eloi selichot selach lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu Ve'al kulam Eloi selichot selach lanu mechal lanu selach lanu mechal lanu kaper lanu. We now turn to page 243 for the Avinu Malkeinu. I'll invite you to rise if you're able as we near the end of our service, our Father, our King. Avinu Malkeinu chatanu lefanecha Avinu Malkeinu ein lanu melech ele ata Avinu Malkeinu asemanu mashmecha Avinu Malkeinu chadesh aleinu shana tova Avinu Malkeinu Avinu Malkeinu Avinu Malkeinu chachazirenu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha Avinu Malkeinu shlach refuah shlema lecholei amecha Avinu Malkeinu zochrenu b'zikaron tov lefanecha Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer chaim tovim Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer geula v'yeshua Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer zichuyot Avinu Malkeinu kotvenu b'sefer slicha u'mechila Avinu Malkeinu chatzmach lani Yeshua b'karov Avinu Malkeinu haram keren Yisrael amecha Avinu Malkeinu Avinu Malkeinu kabel barachamim ratzon et tfilatenu Avinu Malkeinu na'at hashivinu Avinu Malkeinu zocharat Avinu Malkeinu selaman Avinu Malkeinu Choneinu vaneinu Avinu Malkeinu Choneinu vaneinu Ki ein banu masim Aseh imanu Tzedaka v'chesed Aseh imanu tzedaka v'chesed ve'hoshienu.
Before we say goodbye to you, as we welcome you into this Kol Nidre as the sun sets, our thoughts turn to those loved ones, those members of our community who have passed away during this previous year. We remember Donald Sharon, Sylvia Chertow, Kenneth P. Chrisman, Thelma Colvin, Julia Eisenberg, Nia Fisher, Joseph Foreman, Eugene Heller, Emma Kahn, Carol Kerr, Itzhak Chodak, Toby Ludmer, Shelley Mindich, Jeffrey Mishkin, Alan Ormland, Lawrence Larry Rosen, Saul Silver, Jonathan Socher, Matthew Weinberg, Shlomo Charlie Cohen, Barbara Horwitz, Charles Stone, Roland Verney, Helen Bostic. We will now conclude our service and close down our live stream as we turn to page 248 as Rabbi Russell will take us out with Psalm 27.
Achat sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Achat sha'alti meit Adonai ota avakesh. Shivti beveit Adonai kol yemei chayai, lachazot benoam Adonai, ulevaker beichalo, lachazot benoam Adonai, ulevaker beichalo.
We wish you a Gemar Chatima Tova and an easy fast.